Our Thursday morning Bible study focuses on lectionary readings for each upcoming Sunday. We have at times been in awe of how closely our readings parallel what is happening in our world, both near and far. Although the Bible was written up to 3,000 years ago and did not follow a calendar of the Common Era, it has been remarkable how our lectionary readings have coincided with our national and global experience and subsequently our reaction or experience of them. It seems that our readings are alive and meant to not be left in the past. Something to think about. As we continue our Epiphany journey, our first reading this morning is from the book of Isaiah, chapter 49, and is the second of Isaiah's servant songs. The setting of this chapter is the crisis of the Babylonian exile in the 6th century BCE. Israel is in captivity in Babylon, feeling abandoned by God, with Jerusalem in ruins and their identity as God's people in question. The chapter does move to offer hope through the vision of a divinely appointed servant, often interpreted as the Messiah, who will restore Israel and bring light to all nations. This will lead to further restoration and joy, connecting immediate exile with broader redemptive history. In essence, Isaiah 49 provides a message of future hope and restoration from the depths of national despair, centered on the powerful figure of God's servant. But who is the servant? The psalmist does not make the identity clear. The servant could be a historical figure or represent the collective people of Israel. As biblical scholar Paul Hansen puts it, the servant is both faithful individual and obedient community. The Reverend Dr. Stephanie Paulsell says that the pastoral impact of this text is not dependent upon a definitive answer to the question. The call of God that the servant describes, while powerful, is not unique to any historical character. The psalmist also sings of being known by God before birth. God never ceases calling. The psalmist tells us God speaks and summons the earth from the rising of the sun to its setting. The call of God, about which the servant sings, is a call that comes to the beloved people of Israel, to the earth itself, and to each of us, specifically in our own lives. The servant calls out to people far and near. The Lord called me from before I was born. While I was in my mother's womb, he named me. He hid me. He protected me in secret, made me a polished arrow, and said to me, "You are my servant, Israel, in whom I will be glorified." The commentary, Keeping Holy Time, describes the impact of the Lord's message to the servant. Because his calling and mission are so important, the servant feels himself to be a failure. He has not lived up to all the expectations God had for him, and his ministry seems to be in vain, and all he thinks has been for nothing. The servant's experience transcends time. Here, as well as often in the Psalms, what begins as a lament turns to praise and confidence. Even though he seems to the world to be a failure, through the eyes of faith, he sees his life completely under the rule and guidance of God. This is all the assurance of success he needs. God says, "I've decided it isn't enough for you to bring Israel back to me. Be a light to all other nations also." God's will is that salvation should reach to the ends of the earth, not just to one people. This message harkens back to the covenant made with Abraham long before, that all people will be blessed because of him. This descendant of Abraham will bring the light of God's love to all people on earth. All the world will come and pay homage to God and to the despised servant, Israel. God is the Redeemer and the Holy One. God's holiness is revealed negatively in judgment and positively in redemption. As a result, the representatives of the nations will come to God's holy altar and honor the servant for the sake of God. For Christians, this prophecy was fulfilled in Jesus, the servant Messiah. The task of carrying out this mission is given to his followers. As Christians, we are followers of Jesus. If we claim to believe in him, then how do we proclaim him? How can we carry forward the mission we have been given? How do we help spread his light? Do we pursue perfection? Do we put God in a box? Do we fail to understand that our actions speak louder than words? Do we tell everyone how to live, how to be? In the season of Epiphany, we are especially given a chance to discover or reacquaint ourselves with God's gift of insight and compassion made known to the world through Jesus Christ. God's message is not that complicated. In fact, it's really straightforward. Love the Lord your God with all your heart and with all your soul and with all your mind. Love your neighbor as yourself. If you keep these two commandments, then you have followed all the law and the prophets. God's love and mercy is always available to us when we fall into self-doubt and proclaim to God that we are unworthy for the task he is asking. We might need to take a moment to rethink our proclamation. Perhaps God knows our capabilities and gifts better than we do. Why should we settle for failure if that is indeed not what God intended? Our relationship with God is two-way. We need to talk to him about what is on our heart, but then we need to listen. We need to be quiet. We need to listen for God to respond. And finally, in the end, we are always freely given a choice. I think we have all had our turns of feeling unworthy. It is so easy to do. It makes me wonder how many things don't come to fruition because we didn't trust God to nudge us in the right direction. Or how many times something was eventually accomplished, but would have happened far sooner or more smoothly if we only had been more open. I can't speak for anyone else, so I will use myself as an example. As a child, I always loved going to Sunday school and church. I sang in the children's choir as well. I couldn't wait to be confirmed and got permission to be accepted as 11 instead of 12. My gift from the church was my first Bible, and I wasted no time in getting acquainted with it. In junior high, I delighted in teaching vacation Bible school and was thanked for my efforts by being sent for a weekend away at Christian camp. While there, I felt moved to get up in front of the whole camp at fireside night and shared my words about God and Jesus. Upon my return, I was asked to repeat my words from the pulpit at a Sunday evening service. While on travels with my parents, I was exposed to many cathedrals and museums, and I was always in awe. In high school, I always attended church, but started to go with friends at special times to the Catholic Church because my family did not follow things like Ash Wednesday, Lent, or Holy Week, or Christmas Eve, or Epiphany, etc. It was a good thing Easter always fell on a Sunday. You could say that they were low church. I embarked on my journey of truly understanding my relationship with God when I went off to college. I found that bad things can happen to good people at 17, but I survived. And I intensified my search. That search stayed with me as an adult and came to a head with a very pronounced conversion experience. I was quite surprised about what followed. I felt called to seminary. Here I was, a single parent with 3 small children, and what on earth was God thinking? What on earth was this? How was this supposed to unfold? I couldn't really believe I was being called to be a priest. So I thought I would just try a few classes at Fuller and then see how it went. The diocese was another thing. Not only did I have to believe in my call, but others had to testify to it as well. My 4 to 5 year program stretched to 10 years because I could only attend part-time. To say I didn't have my ups and downs during those years, and my doubts, I would be lying. It seemed like every time I went through a tough spot, God just seemed to pick me up, dust me off, and tell me to keep on going. The hardest part to my call, like the servant, was the feeling of not being worthy. How could I have made some of my bad choices in my life? As I drove down the freeway one day toward a diocesan appointment, out of nowhere, I heard a still, small voice ask me, "How can you call yourself a Christian if you can't even forgive yourself?" I almost slammed on the brakes, which would have indeed been quite a surprise to the car behind me. I realized then that God had forgiven me and had always forgiven me and was indeed calling me to be a priest. You could say that that was one of my biggest wake-up calls in my life. God knew my heart better than I did. I look back on my life and realize God was always knocking on my door. There is a reason why God has taught us love and mercy through his Son, Jesus Christ. Quite simply, we are to carry on his mission. May God be with you all and hold us close. Amen.